Look at us both on the road, Anthony.
On the road again, literally on the road.
Oh,
I'm in a car.
yeah, you are. All right, we'll be right back.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. I, of course, am Glenn Hausman, and that right there is Willie Nelson. Great to see you.
Hey, hey, okay. So I'm going to test your knowledge of old television shows.
Okay.
You said we'll be right back. So what was the tagline of a show that was on for about 5 years? It said, we'll be right back with?
Oh man, there's so many like that. I just remember the song, After These Messages, We'll Be Right Back. Do you remember that?
No, but I remember the show Real People. We'll be right back with Real People.
Yeah, with Byron Allen, who went on to be a huge
billionaire
success. I know.
And he's suing McDonald's.
Yeah, for something like $1 billion or something like that.
Yeah, he's a billionaire. The comedian who wasn't really good and was kind of awkward and wasn't a great actor becomes a billionaire media guy.
Yeah, check out that show. It was from the late 1970s, and it was kind of that the first phase of reality shows where they focused on obviously real people. Reminded me of That's Incredible and some other fun shows that were on at that time.
He owns the Weather Channel.
All right, Byron Allen is absolutely amazing. If you don't know who he is, check him out. He's one of the most incredible people that you may not have heard about.
He's the guy that used to do that late night comedy show with a bunch of comedians. Yep. That when you came home either drunk or you came home late from work or you couldn't sleep, you turned it on and you watched a bunch of comedians talking. Yep. That was the Byron Allen show. And I was one day looking him up and I just looked him up and I was like, he's a billionaire?
Right. All right. We got to get right into it because you're on the road and you've got places to be, but it's all good because you're going to an IHG event. And we have Julienne Smith, Chief Development Officer with IHG. Julianne, it's so great to see you again. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you guys. And I love that none of us are in the office or in our homes. We're all out and about. That's really great to see.
That's even though I happen to be, oddly enough, in a place called Corona, California. That is way behind us in the past. And we are looking forward. IHG is looking forward. And you've been selling into this role nicely for about 4 or 5 months now since you actually took over. You were named to this position 6 months ago. What's that like?
It's been great. I joined IHG in summer of 19, and I was named CDO of the Americas region July 1st. I'd been working closely with Joel Eisman, who'd been leading the company for about 10 years before he's on to bigger and better things. He's not retired, as he would say. He's working with other groups and doing some consulting, which he's great at, right? I mean, he's a 40-year veteran. So awesome opportunity for me to step in. We've restructured the team. I've got some dynamic leaders focused on our mainstream development, our upscale development, our MLEC development south of the border, and as well as Kimpton. So really excited about the opportunities we have ahead.
I just saw Kimpton. I just saw it in the news today. I didn't have a chance to check it because I was setting up for this show. But first all-inclusive resort for Kimpton.
That's right. We just signed that with the Playa folks a couple of weeks ago. We're super excited about that opportunity. Kimpton's on a great trajectory. We've got awesome hotels that have opened in the last couple of months and also signing in the next couple of months. So
you're a great example of what we try to talk about every day on this show, that this industry is the most exciting, dynamic industry there is, and that you can come in and be in the position you're in. Did you ever think when you were in college or in high school that you would be in this position?
No, as a matter of fact, when Glenn said, after these messages, we'll be right back, it's from Saturday morning cartoons. So I did a whole lot of nothing in high school and college. I kind of found myself a bit more, but I wasn't aware of the careers that were in the hospitality industry at that time. I have a liberal arts major. I wanted to make documentary films. I thought that was really cool. And then I graduated and my parents asked me how I was going to make money. And that's when I shifted my ideas of what to do. But the work that
Wait, I got to ask you about this documentary film thing. Is that because you liked what the father on Family Ties?
Wasn't he an architect?
No, that was Mike Brady. He ran a PBS station and was always talking about these documentaries they were doing, like Life of Ants. And,
That's right. I'm mixing up my shows, right?
So hopefully in a couple of weeks, I'll be reaching out to you because we're working on something that you may be interested in helping us with, and it has something to do with your prior skill set and prior ambitions, because this industry needs a representation to show how wonderful this is, and you're a great example of that. And so we're working on something, but as it matures, I'll keep you posted.
Yeah. So, Julianne, I really want to learn all about what you're doing with certain brands, including how you've got a new prototype for Even. But you were saying that you didn't even know this job existed. And that's one of the fundamental problems that we're having in the hospitality industry, adequately communicating amazing jobs like yours exist. How did you learn about that? And how did you get started on that development pathway?
Yeah, I found myself after a series of missed opportunities because I was trying to find a job in Northern California where I lived right after the tech bubble, and everybody else was looking for a job. I ended up working for a construction company that opened my eyes to development, how things get done, real estate. But there was a ceiling with that company. It was a small family-run organization. I learned a lot there, but I needed to move on. So I hit monster.com, which is the way that you found jobs 20 years ago, and found two opportunities, one with Yum Brands in Irvine and one with Marriott's development office, which at the time was in Newport Beach. And I got traction after, harassing them actually for several months to hire me. I got traction with that team. Tony Capuano was there at the time, Jim Erlacher, Chris Ivey, who hired me, Joy Barry, Stan Jones, who's now with Intermountain. And they took me under their wing, introduced me to what market planning is, how to assess a market, introduced me to franchising, owner relations. I learned everything there at Marriott for the first 3 years. And then Chris left for Hyatt, hired me at Hyatt, and the story goes on. But I really learned it from the ground. I was a development assistant, and I just loved it. I love the entrepreneurial spirit of the hotel owner. They're the backbones, in addition to our associates at the hotels. The owners are a backbone of this industry.
Right. Anthony, you muted yourself.
One of the things I wanted to touch on, you said that you applied and then you hit traction a couple of months later. Yeah. Therein lies the problem in our industry, right? That we're so busy, we get so many resumes, we get so much talent. Like, our talent walks out the door. If it wasn't for your stick-to-itiveness, and I have a story about how I got my first job, same thing. It's like I became a big, big, big problem for the person I wanted a job with. Like, I became his nightmare. And then finally he hired me and I became his hero, right? So, like, that's the thing that I'd like you to talk about, of like stick-to-itiveness and telling young people out there, but also how do we do a better job, whether it be your company or other companies, of like not, because it's hard you get that resume now through internet or whatever, and you miss. Could you imagine if they didn't hire you? The opportunity that you've missed and the opportunity they missed just because somebody didn't take the time getting back to you.
Yeah. Well, actually, they didn't hire me. They hired somebody else.
Right.
And they thought I was a bit overqualified. They weren't necessarily looking for somebody with work experience. And I had a few years under my belt. They wanted somebody who would stay happy as an assistant, and kind of saw through my resume that I would want to maybe learn more and grow in my career. And I was very clear about that during the interview process. Luckily, she didn't work out, unfortunately for her, but lucky for me. So I just kept in touch with Chris Ivey, actually. And then he called me back and said, hey, would you be willing to start? But now we're actually looking for somebody part-time. Would you do part-time? And says, absolutely, get my foot in the door and prove myself. And, I do believe that as leaders, we're responsible for creating opportunities and being responsive to young applicants and talent. But it's also on the young talent and applicants to be a dog with a bone, right? And be really persistent and find ways to get your foot in the door, because nobody really taps you on the shoulder. Same with promotions, right? No one's really tapping you on the shoulder. If you want something, you have to go after it. So there's definitely some tenacity that's involved and I encourage.
That's interesting. But what I find most phenomenal is that you were rejected from this job, but you didn't take that as a clear no. And that comes down to what Anthony called stick-to-itiveness, and I would call grit. What gave you the guts to then continue to check in with these people that rejected you and not take it personally as a statement on who you are as a human being? Because I always ran away from those negative experiences myself.
It's part of my personality. I'm the far youngest in my family. I'm from New Jersey with New Yorker parents, and just, they pushed me. I was halfway, encouraged and halfway somewhat feral in that I had to find things out myself. So I think it's part of my personality. And then also there have been small successes, or they were at the time, small successes along the way.
Right.
So I was encouraged to continue to do that. But in the job that I have, I've got to turn yeses or no's into yeses, both internally as I'm negotiating with, our brand colleagues and our CEO as to why we should do something, and then externally with our owners in, encouraging them to grow with us. So I think that's also ingrained in my job.
And it's really great because, you do have experience, but you are relatively young, for, in a really big position, and you don't look like the people that had the job before you.
Right.
And it's such a great representation of what your company's doing to have someone that, has great experience, but is on the younger side and is not a male. And I love seeing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but you're out there.
It's a great message for everyone.
We hear that representation matters, right? There are people who say, I'm not going to work for that company because nobody looks like me there, right? None of the leaders look like me. And that's real today. I don't know that was so real 20 years ago. I didn't notice that everybody was men, to be honest. I have a brother. Not really. No. And I think that's, again, just my own personal experience. Growing up, I was interested in sports and other things and tended to be surrounded by boys. My brother is a big influence on me, my father. So it just didn't occur to me that I walked into a room full of men until somebody pointed it out. It was probably mid-career where someone said, you really could be a great example for women who are trying to grow in development and become leaders in this organization, where I thought that's something I should do to pay forward and help encourage, young women to step into development, which I've done and do.
It's so funny. The reason I wanted TV shows because I didn't see short, middle-aged guys on television. So I said, you know what? We need more short, bald, middle-aged guys on television.
And I'm going to try really hard to, bring Jews to Hollywood. So wish me luck.
Oh, I think they already got there, buddy.
Yeah, but really, 20 years ago, when I was still relatively new in this business as well, I go to these financial conferences, and you would notice women because there were so few. It's like, oh, there's Mary Beth Kutchell, and then that would be about it. Right now, it's completely the opposite.
Yeah.
At this year's lodging conference, just rough numbers, just making this up, probably 30% were women, which is exciting, which is encouraging. And I really think the amount of younger women there as well bodes very well for the future of our.
But I think what you said is so true, is that when you said that you just have to put yourself in the position to, when you are promotable, to talk about it. When nobody else wants that job, say, I'll take that job, and would you want me to do another job? It's that just tenaciousness. Mm-hmm. It's like, I never understood, and I don't mean this like now at 57 to say this, but I literally swear to God didn't know the word no when I was a young manager because I was afraid I was going to be fired.
Right.
So if somebody said to me, Anthony, can you work 7 days a week, 19 hours a day? I'm like, yeah, do you want me to stay? You want me to stay 20? Like, because I was afraid it's going to be fired. And like not doing the best job I can possibly do and leave it all on the field wasn't an option because I was afraid to be fired. Now you should be motivated for other things. But I was just the same thing. It's like I would show up everywhere just because I just wanted to get promoted.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, so Julianne, let's talk about your hotels, all right? You're coming at us right now from a combination holiday in Voco. I haven't had the opportunity yet to stay at a Voco, but these dual-branded properties are really taking off in a very meaningful way over the last 7 to 10 years. How are you seeing that right now play in your overall development strategy from the owners that you work with every day?
Yeah, so this hotel that I'm sitting in was a single branded Holiday Inn for a very long time. It's one of our flagship hotels in Chicago, right on Wolf's Point, where the rivers meet in downtown. And John Murphy, a local developer, stepped in, bought it, and figured that an almost 600 room hotel with a single brand
Right.
wasn't the best use. So he, together with the operating partner, Hostmark, who's been in this hotel for a long time, converted
I love
it.
Postmark, Jerry
Yes,
Cataldo.
Jerry
Yeah.
Cataldo, absolutely. I think his father was at the helm of the company when this hotel was first managed by Hostmark, but so they know it inside and out. So they converted it to both Voco, Holiday Inn. They feel there's a weekend business driver that helps boost it with the Holiday Inn brand, and there's a midweek driver, particularly with all the new office buildings like Salesforce is right here now with a big presence, will help drive midweek and help drive the upper scale or upscale events. So it's got a lot of meeting space as well.
Yeah.
So it just opened. So we're seeing a little bit of that. Existing hotels that maybe have seen its time, and how do we reimagine them and keep them in the IHG family? And this is a great balance. We've also...
Wait, before you go on, so
Yeah.
were they just able to convert rooms, or did they have to like blow out walls and reinvent it? Because a 600 room Holiday Inn was probably, as a flagship property, an older structure, right?
Definitely. And it probably has more room types than Jerry would like to manage.
Yeah.
But it's floor by floor, a different brand.
Mhm.
And then also, I believe it's one floor has both Voco and Holiday Inn rooms because of the way that it laid out. The most significant work was done in the public space. It's an atrium hotel with a pretty significant 15th floor lobby space that was underutilized. For example, office space was along the windows where you could see the rivers, right? So in the 1970s, 80s, that made a lot of sense. Now with the focus on F&B and how many people want to spend a little time at the bar, have dinner, or what have you, they have the beautiful views of the river with the reconfiguration that's put in. So the Voco brand is dominant in the public space. That's the brand that will help drive more meetings and upscale business and F&B business, and less so Holiday Inn. But when you check in, you've got both sides, signs, you've got one front desk, so that doesn't create customer confusion, which sometimes that happens when there's two desks. And yeah, we think that we're going to get kind of the best of both worlds with two different brands.
Right, and that's why owners are really loving this. It gives them more opportunities to find those different types of guests to maximize both rate and occupancy in that single structure. And we're seeing that a lot now. A lot of the major companies are going this dual brand or even a tri-brand route because they understand that different types of guests want different kinds of experiences in hotels, and you can satisfy both those urges with a single type of structure. Overall, Julianne, are you finding that these combination buildings are really taking off when it comes to new construction and conversions?
Yeah, we just opened a Holiday Inn Candlewood dual brand in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. We also have a prototype for a Candlewood Avid new construction, which we're seeing have great success and interest in smaller markets where maybe a standalone Avid and a standalone Candlewood would be maybe too many rooms, but there's definitely rooms to be had in that market. So balancing it with Avid, which is more transient, a little smaller of a room, and Candlewood, which is your extended stay in a larger suite room, has been really well received. And we see a pretty significant pipeline of those deals relative to standalone.
Right. Interesting. Anthony, you want me to go on to the next brand?
Well, I know you want to get to the brand, but when you're talking to owners, you know, everybody talks about amenity creep and all that stuff with a lot of brands, but what are they looking for in new hotels? I mean, one of their first questions, besides cost and everything, is like, we don't want a lot of these expensive kind of amenities and these expensive items. Like, what's the first thing that people are asking about today?
So first of all, efficiency is key. You're making sure that there's no wasted space, none. Right. I think that's table stakes these days. And I would say that shift has occurred in the last 10 years where costs just keep going up. And we see costs at an all-time high. They're not going to go backwards. Right. I don't think so. Making sure that they're as efficient as possible. And then also the majority of our franchisees and the brands that they build, Express, Avid, Candlewood, Staybridge, they want a rooms business. There's not a lot of interest in being in the F&B space. There are some brands that just require a complimentary breakfast with the higher end extended stay, like Staybridge, and some of our competitors are in that as well, where you give the breakfast away. They're not loving that, right?
Right.
Owners would love for us to charge for everything that we have within a brand, but our guests have expected that if they're going to stay for a week, they're not going to want to be nickeled and dimed, right? They want to be able to come down and have breakfast that's complimentary. So I would say minimizing and making those experiences as efficient as possible, using ingredients in several different ways. So you don't have 45 different things that you need to buy. So efficiency is absolutely the key to our ownership community and their interest in our brands.
Right.
It's funny. I can't tell you the number of times a week I tell in my consulting business owners that want to develop rooms only, rooms only, rooms only, rooms only, rooms only, meeting space. I want weddings. I want meeting rooms only, rooms only.
Right,
Unless you're in a destination that just makes sense for weddings and meetings, like rooms only is where it all flows to the bottom line. That's why extended stays becoming the cool kid in high school now.
Yeah, it's always been a really solid investment thesis, but I think the pandemic helped accelerate that. And we see a lot of our the hotel companies focusing on that. I will say that F&B sort of phenomenon exists in the upper upscale segment as well, where the owner says, great, I understand you need a full service restaurant. It's going to be a cool concept. We're going to lease that out. We're going to let somebody else who knows F&B control that, especially in urban markets, so that they can just focus on the rooms business.
Right. That being said, Julianne, our very own producer Dave is general manager of the Even Hotel Midtown East in New York City. And congratulations to Dave for still being alive after the General Assembly for the UN over there, where he had to probably show ID just even get towards his hotel. But I mentioned Even Hotels in particular. I happen to like that brand. Wellness is really becoming to the forefront finally here in this post-pandemic period. And you folks are rethinking Even Hotels to get rid of that wasted space that you just mentioned there, as well as create other efficiencies with the structure, as well as the F&B program. What were you thinking about in bringing out this new era in Even Hotels?
Yeah, so today Even stands at 22 open hotels and about 22, 23 in the pipeline. So we'll have 50 in short order. And what we found was, as our franchisees, as we always do, we looked at what our franchisees are doing. As they were building our prototype, they suggested some efficiencies, actually. So we took a step back and said, okay, it's time. Generation 2 of Even needs to come out. So we've shaved off some of the square footage in the lobby area and reimagined the F&B concept, where wellness is at the core of this brand, but we don't want it to alienate someone who's going on a bachelorette trip, or they want to indulge a little bit, right? We want those people to stay at our hotel as well. So we changed the items that are offered within our menu, where there are some nutritious items, but there's also some indulgent items, burger and beer and so forth. So we've added that. Right. In the rooms, we have in our existing hotels a workout bar that is attached to the wall. You can do TRX movements and stuff like that. What we heard from our owners is, it's pretty expensive to install those in every single room. And what we're seeing is not every single guest is using that. Right. And some guests actually don't want to look at workout equipment in their room. So we have 3 different room types now, where the base is, a yoga mat and an exercise ball, and that's it. The standard is that built-in exercise bar. And then the premium is a room with a Peloton bike. So those real hardcore Peloton enthusiasts can get the workout in that they want. So we have that difference. And then also the fitness center, which is a hallmark of the brand as well. The square footage is shaved down just a bit as well to make that a little bit more efficient, but we still lead with that as being a major piece of the brand.
How do you go through reevaluating a brand? What is that process like? Because, no matter how great you do at creating something, time continually moves forward, culture changes, and you have to, update every once in a while. What is that process like to figure out what owners are looking for and consumers expect?
Yeah. So we have our brand leadership teams who have a variety of different backgrounds. They might be from the hotel business. They might be from different products and branding companies. So they keep their finger on the pulse as to what the consumers are interested in, both in our space and other spaces, to kind of get ahead of that. But more importantly, from my viewpoint, is we tap our ownership base. So in the case of Even, we brought a handful of Even owners together, some who've been with us since the beginning and some who are newer, who have hotels in the pipeline, and said, well, what do you think? If we change this or we change that, is that something you think would be valuable? Do you think we're going too far away from the essence of the brand? And it's a collaborative process in that way. We can create the best model that we think exists, but the owners have to want to build it. So we really lean heavily on them.
Yeah, and I think that's been a problem in our industry for many years. And I think in the last 10 years, brands got with the program that a lot of brands were built in a bubble and kind of forced upon owners. And now owners, and I'm sure Glenn sees it even more than me because he's at every conference, owners not only have a seat at the table, they kind of own the table. And I think that's, they need to have, if they're going to invest their money and their time and their efforts, they have to have input. And it's great to see every brand is really bringing the owner's input to the table. You're on mute. Okay, maybe you're not on mute. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so bye, Glenn. We didn't need you the first place. That's okay. But that's but what do you think about that? I don't even know when you came into the industry. Did you see that as much as you do now? Owners coming to the table?
So yes, I would say so. In my experience with the companies that I worked for, Marriott first and then Hyatt, yes. I think some companies got there a little bit later, depends on kind of where their core is. But I think most of the companies who are based on a franchise model, which IHG is, you have to rely on your core business, your core customer, right? Which is the ownership community. I think we're doing it more and more though, because they're the boots on the ground. They're the folks hiring the GCs, the people who are working in the hotels. So we get our best ideas, in my view, from our franchise community, our guests and our franchise community.
So, and then one of the things I said last week, and I don't know if a lot of people agree with me, but in 5 to 10 years, there won't be a front desk at a lot of mid-level hotels. Do you agree or disagree?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I think there won't be in the context of technology, right? Because I want to be able to check in personally, want to be able to check in my room and do all the things and interact with the hotel on my device. But I also, maybe because I'm a social person, I would like to have someone there. It makes me feel a little bit more secure. That's the number one reason why I don't stay at Airbnb or VRBO, is I don't know who to call. If I have a problem or I'm feeling unsafe or whatever might be going on, I want to know that there's a staff of people I can reach out to. And that's not the case in the shared home model. So maybe the front desk goes away in the way that we know it today. Maybe it's reconcepted in some floating matter, who knows, like maybe it's in different spaces. But I don't know that it ever completely goes away because we're in the hospitality business, right?
Right. You always need that person in the lobby, and I agree. But that person becomes unattached and doesn't have to worry about pushing buttons and can really focus on you. And I think that that's going to be really added value because, like you said, we do everything on our phones now. We don't need somebody to check us in. If I can do it on my phone, but I do want you to greet me and I do want you to wish me a good day. And if I have a problem, I want you to be able to solve it immediately. But you're right. Like, I don't need you to check me in. I want to check in by myself, but I want you to be there.
Yeah.
That being said, I need a lot of
communication. I'm sorry, Glenn. You weren't invited back. Can you?
Damn. That's too bad. Sorry, everybody. I got these new lav mics, and my battery died. So that was a total rookie mistake, Julianne. My apologies.
I'm actually going to have to leave in 1 minute, but
All right. So Anthony, why don't you get going? I got a question or two to ask Julianne before we wrap up.
Go ahead. I want to hear it. Go ahead.
All right. Julianne, last week at the lodging conference, all the talk was about how the Fed keeps raising those interest rates. And I saw owners were kind of split on this. Some are saying it's already fully baked into their expectations. Others are saying it's going to change their attitude from maybe going from building to doing conversions, et cetera, et cetera. What's your general sense about how that's going to going to affect your development pipeline out there?
Yeah. I think the franchisees and builders who are not focused on beating the timing, right? They're not focused on building, flipping, right? They're focused on, you know what, I can hold this for 3 years. Maybe I hold it for 13 years, whatever it might be. Those guys are going to continue on. They did through the mortgage crisis, which was also difficult in a much different way. But those folks who are not over levering, they aren't too concerned about fluctuation because they don't have an immediate exit need. Right. So, and that is the bulk of our franchisees tend to be more family operators who are long-term holders. So from my standpoint, our community of franchisees are continuing to move forward. They've got great relationships with mostly regional or local banks. And we'll keep going on. I think it's more difficult for the larger projects. It's more the high net worth individuals who are moving forward. Sort of the REITs and so forth, I think are trying to figure out how they can buy again, right? They're not, the pricing is a little bit off for them to promise an exit for these developers.
Right. That's really an interesting way to look at it. So it's really a matter of each individual and how they're approaching it. So there's still a lot of runway for you in order to find success for IHG and your owners, although some might be rethinking certain specific projects depending on how they're leveraged, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's always conversions and adaptive reuse projects as well, which we continue to look at.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what's going on with some of your other brands, such as Voco, who is not yet part of mainstream culture, as good old like Holiday Inn, for example.
Yeah, Voco's been one of our fastest growing brands. It was launched as a soft brand that's easily convertible. So we've got a great pipeline of deals. We've got about 7 open here in the US. We've got about 50 total across the board that'll come into fruition globally. But we've been very busy in the last, I would say, decade, and particularly in the last couple of years, building our upscale, upper upscale, and luxury portfolio. So buying Kimpton, Six Senses, Regent, launching Voco, launching Vignette. We've been very busy working to expand our consumer base. You know, we've got 3,000 Holiday Inn Expresses, and Anthony, I know that's one of your favorite brands. That's half of our estate. We've got just about 6,000 hotels worldwide. So it's significant, but what we're working to do is get those customers to either stay at a Hotel Indigo or Kimpton, which some of them may, but really attract a new consumer base who we've already had through Intercontinental, we acquired through Kimpton, but having more areas or brands for them to stay in different markets is extremely important for us to be able to give them opportunities to grow and be loyal to our program.
Awesome. How about a few words on, what you folks are doing with Avid and Atwell? We've had on brand leaders from there before, but I haven't had an update in a while.
Yeah, we have 50 open Avids now. I think more than 50. We just celebrated our 50th. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and we've got more than 150 or so in the pipeline. Atwell, we've got a prototype open now at Denver Airport, which we've had a lot of people through, and we've got about 25 in the reported pipeline on that side as well. But a lot of interest. Atwell is a long-term stay and all suites project property, or brand, so it lends itself to a little bit more of that extended stay model that's been popular. And Av is extremely efficient, so both of those brands are taking off as we knew they would.
As Chief Development Officer, how do you keep track of not just all of the brands, but all of the stakeholders in the brands in order to keep moving the ball forward on all of these different brands?
So every year I have an intern update this extremely large matrix because there's a lot, and it's a lot to keep up with. So pipeline, existing estate, where the brands compete. I actually, since I've become a leader in this business, 10 years ago or so, that's been summer intern work. Just update this matrix, help me, keep me organized.
Yeah, because it's so many different brands, all with different points of views. So it could be complicated. I guess you have like 16 brands that you focus on or so? Because I'm not sure you have anything to do with the Hualux brand that's exclusively in China.
Yeah, so in totality, we have 17 brands. Personally, my team doesn't focus on Hualux. That's just in China, as you mentioned, and then Six Senses is separate. We talk to that team all the time because we do overlap when we're looking at region opportunities. And then we still have Holiday and Club Vacations, which I continue to talk to the Wilson family on a regular basis. But that's something my team doesn't get involved with either. But everything else, we're working to grow. And most of the brands we franchise, not all. We don't franchise Regent, but we franchise pretty much everything else.
So tell me just before we let you go, what are you most excited about the future? What lessons do you think you've learned over the last couple of years that you think you're going to be able to apply for success going forward for your career and for IHG in general?
There's a couple of things. I think what rises to the top for both of those questions is the focus on relationships. I'm very excited about the team that we've built under Kevin Schramm's leadership, Matt Frankowitz, Tiffany Cooper, Paula Don. We've got great people who build great relationships with owners. And that's where we tend to have an edge, is just the connectivity to our ownership group, the trust that as they have issues along the way, and in development, there's always issues somewhere, that we're there to back them up and help them through the process. So just the focus on building a great community of franchisees and a great team to help that come to fruition.
Awesome. I think this has been absolutely fantastic, Julianne. Any message that you want to send to the universe before we let you go today?
Just stay positive. You know, this post-pandemic will pass and we'll get through it. And I'm excited about the future.
Listen, if we could make it through what we did over the last couple of years, the rest is easy. The one lesson I've taken away from this, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating it for you audience folks out there, is it was so difficult that no matter what I think hits us in life, we'll be able to just go, no big deal. You know,
We've got some strong kids too, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Julianne, stick around backstage. Let me just wrap up and I will see you later. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody for watching today. Tomorrow, we've got another great interview with the CEO of a major hotel company. So be sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your audio podcasts. We are there. And if you're listening to this voice right now, then why not just give us a try? Watch us on video. Watch us on Anthony or my LinkedIn pages, Facebook pages, novacancynews.com, and of course, YouTube. All right, everybody, remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and be kind to yourself. We'll see you all tomorrow.